Welcome to R&R Showtime with Robert.
And Ryan.
Today we'll be talking about Captain Falcon, or not Captain Falcon, it's just Falcon and the Winter Soldier, Episode 2.
The Star-Spangled Man.
Yes. So we'll start off with our first impressions. Ryan, would you like to go first?
Oh yeah, this episode's like so much better than the first in my opinion, and now I'm actually interested in the show like much more than I was than with episode 1.
Yeah, so it's funny, my impression of this, like, there's a lot of cool things happening, but there's just something about this episode that actually almost failed for me. And so coming out of it, I was kind of I don't know, maybe a little let down, which is like weird to say. Maybe it's because in some way my expectations were actually kind of higher for this episode or something. But
I think yeah, maybe that's the thing. Like we had different reactions to the first episode, so like my expectations had been so totally killed that an episode filled with just like intrigue and learning stuff as opposed to like the sort of humdrumness of the first episode made me like this one more. And I mean, we're going to get into it, but I think like one of the issues I had with the first yeah. Okay,
we'll just get into it at the
yeah.
end. Yeah, let's get through our recap and maybe touch on some of those points. Yeah, so episode starts out with John Walker in his old high school football locker room. Yeah. And he has an interaction with a woman who I'm assuming is his girlfriend and or his wife.
Presumably, yeah.
Yeah, and with his partner, what is it his first name? I know it's Hoskinson, right?
Lamar Hoskins.
Yeah, Lamar Hoskins. Talks with him a little bit kind of about his new, how he's feeling about his new role as Captain America. And then, we see him march out to, fanfare and to a, live televised, episode of Good Morning America out on the football field of his high school. And, people kind of get a new introduction to the new Captain America and learn. We as an audience learn a little bit more about him. They talk about his resume, that he's a decorated veteran.
A 3 Medal of Honor winner. I think that
yeah, 3 Medal of Honor, and apparently he has, they indicate that he has sort of extra human, speed and senses and things like that. Again, not like enhanced in any special way, but we can see that in comic book sort of worlds, there are people that are sort of the step above the a regular class of people.
Yeah, we see like a clip of him throwing the shield around, and it's like impressive, like his ability to like fire it out, like launch it from his hand without having the super soldier power that Cap did.
Yeah, and this kind of relates to like the what I was thinking of, like with the Falcon, and like things, the Falcon, Black Widow, and Hawkeye, who are all regular people. They are not special in that they are like alien blooded or enhanced in any particular way. Or you can even say Tony Stark as well, technically, because he is just a regular man. But they all have essentially like ultra heightened abilities in whatever they are.
Super smart, super marksman, super agility, super human strength without it being a result of like the serum or some other means.
Yeah, essentially, peak condition and all these things, like the highest ability to achieve as a human. So we see that John Walker does seem to kind of be in that class. He is like a pinnacle human being in his capability. So he is in some ways, without having a super soldier serum, suited to be Captain America.
Mm-hmm.
But so we get this introduction to him, and it kind of fades into Bucky actually watching it, sitting on the floor of his apartment, and then we get a cut from this scene where we meet Captain America over to
Sam.
Sam, yeah. So it cuts over to Sam, and he's talking with Torres in like a airplane hangar.
Yeah.
And as they're coming out, essentially getting ready for some kind of mission to Munich, Bucky shows up and starts kind of just railing on Sam. Why'd you give it the shield? You shouldn't have done it. Did you not expect that? Them to do that with it? And Sam's kind of just trying to brush it off and just keep moving. And he said, I've got somewhere to be. It's I'm not worried about that right now. Like I was just trying to do what I thought was right. Yada yada. And as he's saying, hey, I'm dealing with something more important. I'm trying to go after this terrorist group. Bucky says, all right, well, I'm coming with you. Yeah. Let's go deal with this together. And right here we get this first interaction between them. This sort of that they the butting heads that the whole buddy cop kind of feel that we're going for, where and Sam kind of comes off as obviously the lighter hearted one, and Bucky's much more stern and serious. And
he likes to stare.
Yeah, apparently he likes to stare. It's his thing. So they jump in the airplane hangar and they head off. We get some of this. We just get to see the Bucky Sam interaction as he jumps out of the plane. Bucky jumps out of the plane as well. Just literally jumps out. And again, this is where we see Bucky, who is not enhanced, as far as I know.
No, he said that he was super serum. That's why he's lived this long. Other than being in cold storage, and also, yeah,
I don't know that the super serums is the reason that. I mean, I could just be totally wrong here. This is just my previous thought. I guess he does indicate later in the episode that he has the super serum that
people like us when he's
yeah. So nonetheless, he does literally jump out of a plane, grabbing onto branches basically to brace his 200-foot fall from an airplane. Catches up with Sam, and they enter into these sort of half broken buildings out in the middle of kind of like a forested area, and they see the Flag Smashers who they have tracked here, and they seem to be loading up some large crates, and we get a view of them, and it looks as if like more than one of them are picking up these huge crates with ease. So this is when we get our first clue that they also are enhanced, just like the one that we had seen in the previous episode that Torres had gotten beat up by. So using a scanner, Sam
and Red Wing.
Yeah, and Red Wing. Sam sees that there might be another hostage inside of one of these trucks that they're loading up. And so they, thinking there's a hostage, Bucky runs after him and Sam follows, and they begin pursuit. And they just really hop right into it, jump, like fly up on one of the vans, rip it open, and Bucky gets inside and, finds the hostage, only to find out that the hostage is not a hostage. It was just an inside Flag Smasher on the inside of their truck, essentially. And she knocks him out, and basically Sam and Bucky engage with these Flag Smashers on top of both of these trucks. And they're going back and forth, but the Flag Smashers, seem to kind of have them a little bit.
We see that they all apparently have the super serum power.
They all have the super serum, and they kind of get them on the ropes a little bit, where they have, Bucky held and Sam being held at bay as well. And, at that point, somebody jumps in to kind of, help them out and save them a little bit.
And it's Captain America. Not our Captain America, but the Captain America, John Walker, along with his trusty sidekick, Lamar Hoskins. And they come in, swoop in, and they don't. I mean, they engage in the battle and they start to hold their own, but they don't turn it to the tide of victory. They basically just help Bucky and Sam get out of there alive, and then they also sort of get kicked off the truck, and it's still a failure, but they come in and they're able to help.
Yeah, presumably. I mean, it could have gone more south if they hadn't shown up. I mean, who knows? But yeah, they showed up and definitely lend aid. But even the four of them, and I think this might be something even said, because they didn't all work together. They sort of were working in tandem, but not with each other. We're not able to overcome all of the super serumed Flag Smashers that were there.
So we see Sam and Bucky start to make a walk on their own, and then
We get more of that interaction,
Yeah.
where Sam's just razzing Bucky, just making a bunch of jokes about him being a cyborg. It's like what's going through that cyborg brain of yours? I can just see those gears turning. oh, he's having a malfunction. Like,
yeah, funny.
Just kind of get some of that
funny banter.
Mm-hmm.
Then Walker comes along in this military vehicle that he and Lamar are in, and basically asks them to join. They're very resistant at first because clearly they're not fans of this non-Steve Captain America, but they relent and they hop in the car, and then they drive along the way and have conversation. And the new Captain America, John Walker, is trying to convince them to join up with them to help with the aim of the GRC, the Global Repatriation Council. And Sam and Bucky basically are saying are resisting joining sides with him, and mostly because they don't like that he's trying to take Steve's spot. And in this scene, we sort of get John like trying to do what he thinks is right. He trying to convince them, and he seems like a somewhat decent guy. We also get like this sidekick name for Lamar, Battlestar.
Yeah, I mean it is kind of cool.
Yeah. And I think that's the point where Bucky just like hops off.
Yeah, that's literally he says, he tells him his name is Battlestar, and Bucky says, "Stop the car!" Like, and they get out. He's just like, "I'm done." Like,
and then we get one more bit of dialogue from John to Sam, trying to. I don't know what the exact line was, but he brings up Steve's name, and I think that was enough for Sam to be like, "All right, I'm out too." And then they walk away.
Yeah. And during this interaction and our sort of initial introduction to John Walker, I mean, we're kind of getting this picture painted, though, that John Walker is actually at least he seems to be a legitimately good guy.
Yeah.
I mean, he does not seem like he's, some kind of, like, I think previously we were looking for the setup, like he was going to be a, under the thumb sort of like government shill. And I mean, so far he is obviously a member of the military, but he's a decorated veteran and seems to have, kind of high hopes and want, I mean, he helps Sam and Bucky and really says, "Hey, join us. Let's do this together," really in the pursuit of, accomplishing the mission. And I think, I don't know, you get kind of a good feeling from him. Like, this is not like,
yeah, I think part of the goal of the first few interactions we see with this guy in this episode was to get us, the audience, to not hate the guy, because we're not going to like this guy. Like, he's replacing Steve. He's replacing Steve when Sam, specifically, his wishes were, hey, this shield belongs to Steve. It shouldn't be in any person's hand other than his. And so we're going to be predisposed to dislike this guy. So we get the episode opening with him being very humanized, being glorified. And yeah, this scene, I still don't see, like, from this scene, I still don't like get a sense that this dude's bad, like, in any particular way. He seems to be fairly genuine thus far, but it's still early. We still have more time, and we still get more interactions with him in this episode. But so from here, we get Sam and Bucky flying off, and Bucky requests that they make a stop to meet someone in Baltimore, where they come to this sort of impoverished, like, neighborhood, and they arrive to the house of Isaiah Bradley, a veteran super soldier.
Yes, who they find out from speaking with him that, that Bucky essentially had, he met him back in, 1951 and during the Korean War. Apparently Isaiah, working with the government, they got wind of, the Winter Soldier being, out somewhere in Korea. He says the peninsula, but I'm not sure exactly what that's referring to. I mean, I assume that he might be referring to Korea.
The Korean peninsula, yeah.
Yeah. and says that they sent men after the Winter Soldier and none of them came back, so they dropped Isaiah in, and apparently Isaiah actually whipped his ass, like actually beat the Winter Soldier, which is not unsurprising. He said he tore off half of his metal arm at that time, and part of what Isaiah wanted to see here was he kind of wanted to see if he grew his arm back and just and see if he'd come back to kill him. Bucky says, "I'm not a killer anymore," and this sort of starts Isaiah into a bit of a bit of a rage, and he gets more and more agitated as he talks about he says, what I got for being a hero. They put him in prison for 30 years and did tests on him and everything. We don't get too much background other than, but we can. I'm not sure exactly how it went about, but yeah, they basically indicate that they locked him away and just experimented on him for years, and that's basically what he got for being the next super soldier. And he basically in a rage tosses something against the wall, and we get the confirmation that he does have super strength, and tells them to leave.
Yeah, and we see that Sam, after seeing this, is visibly and notably troubled by the discovery that there was a black super soldier that no one had ever heard about, that like only apparently Bucky and maybe some military people knew, because Steve was never told about it. Falcon never knew about him. Nobody ever knew that this other super soldier who was fighting presumably for the US, fighting like evils or what have you, fighting Hydra, because he fought Bucky and beat Bucky, but no one knew about this guy, and he's living in this like sort of rundown neighborhood, and he's clearly like not a happy guy. He's kind of miserable.
Yeah, I mean,
he's got a lot of rage.
Yeah, scarred, probably PSD from the things that he experienced, and
this troubles Sam because it's clearly just it weighs heavy on him.
It's an injustice, really. I mean, this man should have been the next Captain America, is what it really was. I mean, he was the next guy to have super soldier serum that worked for America and fought its enemies,
but apparently he was just a secret.
Yeah, they just made him a secret. They didn't want, again, 1951, why would America want to make a black man the Captain America? That might send the wrong message, and so this even doubly rings true almost. Again, it's not said, but I can see here that Sam's already felt the slight of not of them going to choose a new Captain America and it not being him, but now knowing that like there should have been almost another Captain America already, another black Captain America, and that was not only was he not made Captain America, not given maybe the acclaim and the fame that someone deserves like him, but he was he was put away. He was taken. He had 30 years of his life taken away, and it's just, I don't know. It's just this double, like kick in the chest.
And adding insult to injury, we see the cops roll up on this agitated black man yelling at the poor white Bucky, and they're just like, is there a problem here, sir? Like, can you calm down, sir?
Yeah,
it's
asking Bucky if this man's bothering him while he has his hand on his gun. Meanwhile, and Sam again, they say, "Do you have ID?" Again, pulling up to a man just standing in the street, talking agitatedly with another man, but asking him for his ID. I mean, like, so
no, he doesn't need to show you ID.
Yeah,
but so I mean, it's clear. It's a clear scene. We get that. And at a certain point, the other officer like sort of whispers to him, like those are Avengers.
Yeah,
those are Avengers, man. I'm like, oh, Mr. Wilson, I'm so sorry.
Yeah, exactly. And so, and that makes everything okay now. It's totally fine that they're there. And but they kind of go back to their police car, and after appeasing them and are supplicating them really, and we see that the reason they actually showed up, what they were really reporting to.
It's not the real reason they were showing up. They just find out as a result of them. They pulled up because it was a black guy shouting at a white man. Then they realize, oh, Bucky, you're under arrest. Like they go to check their records on the two.
I mean, I guess something else because they stop what they're doing, talking to them to go jump in the car and check something. Like
they check that he has an outstanding warrant.
But I feel like they already knew something, right? I mean, yeah, you're probably right that they did just pull up, but I was thinking like because a cop car pulls up at the same time.
Yeah, that's just to sort of reinforce the idea that there's cops patrolling like these sort of inner city neighborhoods and like are ready to hop anytime they see this sort of like what should just be an interaction between two people being escalated by the military force. That's at least the point that's being made.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's probably fair to say. But yeah, they basically say that they do get a report that Bucky he has a warrant out for his arrest because he missed his court mandated therapy.
Yes.
And so they arrest him and take him away. And so at this point we cut away from what Bucky and Sam are doing, and we cut over to the Flag Smashers essentially.
Yes, yeah. And we may have cut to them at another point as well.
Yeah, there might have been a little cut to them, but I think this is the point at which where we show them sort of arriving at a safe house in Germany, and the man who's providing the safe house sort of he's talking and saying oh more and more people are showing up and they supporting you, and many people love you. You'll find support anywhere you go, is what he's saying. So we're getting a little bit of background here, a little bit of exposition to understand like lots of people are supporting the Flag Smashers and apparently what they're doing, and that they were distributing medicines out. So this, I mean, they're doing kind of an evil thing here, but it's sort of what they a good. The intentions here are good. Stealing and distributing medicines, good thing. That they maybe want a world without borders has some sort of good intention, but maybe how they're going about it might not be.
And we even get the leader, Carly, in this scene basically asking the other members to make sure that they're committed to the goal, because after tomorrow, there's kind of no going back.
Yeah. It also indicates that she gets some text messages from some unknown number saying, I'm going to find you and kill you. You took what, you stole something from me. So we don't know who exactly that is, but
we get an idea of a name later on.
Yeah.
But back to Sam seeing Bucky get released from prison. He actually arrives and sees his therapist there, and he thanks her for getting him out, but she reveals that it wasn't her. It was John Walker who's arrived to get Bucky out because, he's a valuable asset to the fight of the global terrorism. So
yeah,
he made sure to get him out, and even noted that his therapy schedule is going to change so that he can be more of an asset going forward.
I think specifically like he's saying his therapy schedule's over, so he doesn't need to basically go back to it.
I'm not sure about that. I don't anticipate the therapy being completely over yet.
Well, that's what so what ends up, he basically says like, we need to, get this out of the way because, we need him to be able to, come out and help us. And I
was under the impression that it just wasn't mandated on like a regular basis, but
yeah. So we may well see him go back, but I don't believe it is going to be mandated anymore. She sort of says this is going to be your release or your, I can't remember exactly the term she used, but it's basically this is going to be your release therapy condition. You have to do at least one last therapy with me before I release you. And so she says, Sam, you need to come back with me as well. Because, clearly you guys have some stuff going on here.
Yeah, and we get the impromptu therapy session between the two, and they're quite hostile to each other. And she's trying to get them to, behave like adults. She calls them childish at several points.
She specifically uses, she says, I'm going to use some therapy that I would use with couples.
Yeah.
Which is just, I mean, like, to add a little bit of humor to the situation. Or, she says, well, if a miracle, if a miracle were to happen when you wake up, what miracle would you want? And of course, Bucky's response is, well, in my miracle, he would talk less. Oh, and I was going to say the same thing.
Yeah. So they're not being helped by the therapy. They're agitated. They're agitated with each other. Mm-hmm. And by the end of it, they sort of like, we get more of why Bucky was upset about the shield being let go because he was worried that if Steve was wrong about Sam, then Steve might be wrong about him. And we can see how that sort of shakes his idea of himself, because a lot of his faith in himself came from Steve's faith in him, which is problematic, but it is what it is. And we basically get by the end of the therapy, the two saying that they're going to continue to work together on this, but after that they don't want to see each other again.
Yeah, and I do really like that interaction of the scene. Again, the scene has the same where we're getting more of this, this humorous interaction between them where, they clearly don't like, we don't like each other, but we have to work together to solve the problem kind of thing. But also that insight into, Bucky's psyche and, why this, I mean, I can understand, I think we can understand in just a superficial way why he might be upset that he gave the shield away. He's like, oh no, this isn't what Steve wanted, but that comment and finding out that that's how Bucky feels really just, it gives us a better understanding of, how he functions, that, he's trying to overcome all the things that he did. And like Ryan already said, that, a core and a thing that's really probably helped him along is that, Steve believed in him, that Steve said, I know you're a good guy. And, to have that have that challenged essentially in some way, to see that somebody else that Steve believed in, essentially throw it away and, tarnish that, make less of it. I can see how it would be very difficult, very, really bother him. So I don't know. It's just another humanizing moment for Bucky, which almost just kind of, again, as Ryan might have said it in the last episode, really just it makes you more interested in Bucky, the Winter Soldier, who's kind of just been such a side character in so many of these movies. Like, I mean, he's been there and he's been, cool kind of, and, doing his thing, but it's just never majorly significant really. And now, like, I think he's really getting his own, time to shine, really some real depth to his character.
Very much so. Yeah. I'm really liking Sebastian Stan's performance in this overall. So we get them leaving the police, the place where Bucky was arrested, and they had the therapy, and we get this quick interaction with Walker, and it's one more time where Walker's trying to get them to join his side, and they basically say, hey, you have to follow certain rules. We're free agents. We're going to work better playing by our own rules. And Walker sort of accepts this, but then he says, but hey, stay out of my way. So this is the first time I think that we get the sense that maybe this guy does have a dark side to him. Maybe our initial instincts were right, that he's not as perfect. He's not the golden boy that the rest of the episode was making us believe he might be.
I don't know if that necessarily makes me think, show me a dark side. I mean, I think it's, he's a man on a mission. Like he is a military guy that is, has apparently, completed many missions. And if and maybe in his mind, I think that he's Captain America. Now it's his job to do this right here. And if they're not going to work with him, then it's simple as that. Like, do not get in my way. Like, you guys could, ruin this because you're going to, run off and, do it however you want. But there's like, maybe there's an authority that he's maybe assumed being Captain America. Like, I have the clearance from the government. It's like, I've been appointed to be this guy. And, don't mess this up.
Well, just maybe it's just the way that they filmed it. It had a sinister air to it.
Yeah, potentially.
Yeah. All right. After this, we get a cut over to the Flag Smashers, who appear to be loading up a plane with the medical supplies that they had taken. And at this time, it looks like one of the people say, oh, we've been tracked. They found us. And they mention that it's the power brokers that have found them. And we get a cut of Carly, I believe was her name.
I think so.
Being like sort of afraid, but like trying to get them to load as much as they can onto the plane so that they can get the supplies to the people who need them as soon as possible. And we even have one of the members of the Flag Smashers say, "Go, I'll distract them," and he uses his power to knock over some telephone wire and then go up and basically buy them time while he gets shot up by the several like military vehicles filled with armed men just taking fire at him as they pull up, and it gives the Flag Smashers the chance to fly away with all the supplies that they needed.
Yeah, and this is like I see this as like a glimpse into the kind of how serious these people are taking it, how important this is to these guys. That's I mean, that guy straight up knew and went full in to sacrifice his life. He said, "I'm ready to die for this right now."
Yeah.
And so we get that to them. I mean, this is serious, and they're ready to die, which I mean means that they're willing to do anything. They got nothing to lose.
So yeah, they certainly have commitment behind them. From here, we cut back to Sam and Bucky, and they're just talking out what their plan going forward is. And they basically come to the conclusion that the only other person that really knows Hydra and can maybe help them gain some information on how the super serum is being got to these Flag Smashers is Zemo. And so they decide that they need to head out and talk to him.
Yep, and that's pretty much where we conclude the episode. So I think we'll move into our talking points. Yeah, pretty interesting that, I guess like nobody knew exactly how Zemo was going to come in the series, but I think it's interesting that it's them going to him, that they're going to use him as like a...
I do think that most people were under the impression that Zemo was going to make some sort of breakout, like he was going to use his sort of cunning and stuff to make his way out, and that maybe he was the behind the Flag Smashers, or that he was playing some greater role prior to this. And maybe he is, but yeah, the idea that they're going to go bring him into this is not something I saw coming.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting. It's interesting to think like whether are they going to be the ones that break him out, maybe? Like it's so important that they're going to break into the facility, or is it maybe as a result of, their interaction with him? Maybe it's, he's going to say, get me out and I'll tell you what you need to know, or I'll take you to the place that, so I'm imagining that that's probably going to how it's going to end up going. Cause, I mean, that just seems like the most logical way they'd have to handle it. They're probably going to chafe against it, like, no, we don't want to take him out. He's a bad guy, or we'll just keep a tight leash on him. And then, of course, he's going to escape when they take him to wherever they need to go.
All right. So one thing that I want to address is I mentioned at the beginning of this that I like this episode more. And one of the things that I alluded to but didn't really say is that one of the things that I appreciated most about this episode was that I think it did a better job and a more interesting job of playing with the sort of race dynamics that they were like sort of skirting around in the first episode. Like they didn't want to go right out and say that Sam wasn't getting his loan because he was black. They were definitely implying it, but like there was enough sort of like wiggle room with the loan officer saying, "Oh, well, you don't have this and things are really tight around here." There was enough wiggle room in that first episode to make it seem that it wasn't a race thing, but the fact that they cast Falcon to be the one having the thing, that's sort of what my issue was, I think, was that they wanted to make it a race thing, but they didn't they didn't make it clear that yes, it was a race thing. But in this episode, they're not tiptoeing around it. Like one interesting interaction we have is when they first arrive in Baltimore and they're walking through the neighborhood, and a kid notices Sam and says, "Hey, look, it's Black Falcon." He says, "It's just Falcon. My dad said it was Black Falcon. Is it because I'm black?" "Yeah." "Well, then can I call you Black Kid?" And then this leads right into Isaiah, who is a black man who had the super serum, who should have been a Captain America level star and hero, but instead got 30 years in prison and lives in a poor neighborhood now. Like, this episode wanted to make it clear that this show is tackling race, and it's it's still sort of surface level at this point. It's sort of just like bringing up things like the cop thing. Like, we we're not going to see what the show is really trying to say about it, or if it's going to suggest some solutions, and maybe it's just pointing out that there is an issue with in particular, we're getting the sense of the veterans being neglected, especially minority veterans, and that has been a thing in the past. And I'm just I feel better about how this episode made a more clear stance than in the first episode, where I felt it was just like dipping its toe in. I'm yeah, I'm looking forward to it. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, I kind of like everything you're saying, and essentially agree. I like that they are, portraying these things in evocative and clear ways, and really just trying to paint the picture. Again, the racial thing is very clear and obvious, but and I think this is maybe also very apparent, but it's something that's going a little more. But yeah, it's the how America treats its the veterans that come home. That, I mean, I think in that moment where they said they're Avengers, it's kind of the same, or where Sam says like, hey, I've done a lot for this country, right? And take away being Avenger, but just like consider him as a Sam is also just an Air Force veteran in and of himself, and it's the same kind of thing that this guy's a veteran, right? Like, hey, sorry sir, I didn't know you were high level captain and stuff. Like, now a black man gets a little more acclaim because he's a veteran, but even so, comes back and can't get a loan. Can't get the help that he needs to really survive. Though we see how Isaiah, again, man that should have been Captain America, but let alone just should have at least been a hero. Should have been. It is implied that he did a lot for the country, and instead of coming home and being taken care of, he was cast aside. And so I do like this commentary. I'd like to see, how, I like to see exactly where it goes in the show, like what they, if they show something that, kind of portrays like a solution.
Yeah,
because there's plenty of, things where we see the commentary and the injustice, but I would like to see if Disney is brave enough or really just capable of portraying a way to move forward. Because I think that's just a positive and excellent thing that to be able to communicate in this medium.
At the very least, putting this these topics, like making this a thing in what is presumably going to be a very widely viewed show. Like, WandaVision did massive numbers, and this is the direct lead in. And I think that this show should appeal to more people than WandaVision. In my idea of what this show is going to be, it seems like a more like general crowd pleaser type of show. So hopefully that these themes are allowing people to think about it, and it's not just going to scare people off. So, and then do you have something?
I mean, if you finish your thought there, I have sort of just my own, from what I mentioned in my first impression, which was that something about this second episode that sort of let me down, and I could be totally alone in this. And, I it's hard for me to even put my finger on it, but I did not feel the chemistry between Bucky and Sam. Obviously there are so many moments where they're trying to, make this feeling of, like, oh, Sam's the funny guy and he's trying to be, and Bucky's this and that. But I don't know what it was about this that, and again, maybe this is just, I had too much of an expectation for it, but it just didn't, it didn't really, it just didn't like feel like they were like, like their interaction was as genuine as I would have hoped. Except for I think there are moments where it does, where like when they are in the little therapy session. I think that feels a lot more. That feels a lot stronger. But some of the stuff that they were doing, like even the fact that like Bucky just shows up and is like, I'm going on this mission with you.
Yeah.
He doesn't really have any reason he's going on the mission with him at all. Almost, he just says, I'm going to go too. Like, I guess, maybe because Bucky wants to do something right, or but it almost feels like he's just following Sam for no reason. Kind of. I'm just not, like he just wants to keep yelling at him for something, or I didn't quite understand, and that kind of made it feel like weirdly forced. That like Bucky didn't really have a stake in going to stop these terrorists, other than just, I guess, to do the right thing, just to help stop some terrorists, because that's bad.
All right, so
and
if we're going to talk about this, I want to. So first of all, chemistry wise, I think at this point they're not supposed to have chemistry. They're opposed. They're like clashing in a way that's meant to feel like they're getting at each other's throats. I think that's maybe something that we'll hopefully see later on. Because at this point, like, we shouldn't feel like they should be teaming up, because they're saying within the show that they don't really like each other and that they don't really like want to do this, but they know that they want to work together on it. And I see Bucky shows up when he finds out that Sam gave away the shield and that the shield went to someone else, because Bucky's pretty upset about that. And that's where he's basically tagging along to like trying to get Sam to admit why he gave it up, and like try to figure out like why Sam did this, because of what he says later on, that if Steve was wrong about Sam, then Steve could be wrong about him. So he's trying. It's almost like Bucky wants Sam to prove that he should be Captain America and that he just did something dumb.
Now, that's, I think, what you just said there, that Bucky's tagging along almost to watch, that he wants to see Sam prove that he should be. That, that actually, helps. I think that helps me a little bit. But what I'm saying with chemistry is not that they should have like an attachment or anything right now, because, of course, right now, I think the natural progression of what the relationship should be is antagonistic a little bit right now. Like, we have to work together, but we don't want to. Then that's really what it should be. Like, that's how a lot of like the buddy cop movies look. It's like, oh, I'm the cop that does it the clean and right way, and I'm the cop that does it kind of like this way, and we're forced to work together even if we don't like each other's methods. But eventually we'll learn that we complement each other and we work together well. Blah, blah. Like, that's sort of the arc and the very typical understanding. And it's really just that I don't feel like, I think, okay, so if I can like think of one small example, like there was a Starsky and Hutch movie, right, with Ben Stiller and Owen Wilson. And I don't know if you watched it. I don't know if anybody else watched it, but if anybody has watched it, right, it's the same. It is literally a buddy cop thing where, hey, like, I'm kind of on the dirt. I'm like sort of a dirty cop kind of, and I'm like a by the books cop. And, they kind of rail against each other, but have to work together. And eventually at the end, they're like, oh, we actually work really well together. In that movie, the beginning antagonism, it seems kind of, it seems like when they're like, they are literally forced to work together. They're like, we have to both be on this case kind of thing. And that antagonism is, it seems genuine, right? It seems like they're both going about this, but, and they're, doing it in their own way, but sort of railing against each other. And there's just something about, and, I want to like, Falcon Winter Soldier, I want this to be good. I think some of what they're doing is kind of, funny and interesting, and I see what they're doing, but it doesn't seem, again, like your reasoning why Bucky follows him does give a little bit more purpose, but it just seems like a lot for, I get Bucky showed up there, talk about the shield. I get it. But him going on this mission with him, Bucky has no stake in this mission. So if the only reason he's following him is to see if he really should have been Captain America or something, that seems kind of like a weak reason for him to go. Other than, again, I can give him other reasons.
It's not the only reason. Like, it's just it's like part of him. There's like a core, like something with it. Like, part of him is like, oh yeah, let me go help with this. But like, part of him does want Sam to, like, he wants to basically figure out what the deal is. Like, Steve saw something in this guy, and right now he's not seeing that in this guy. And if Steve's wrong, then what else is Steve wrong about? It's really his reflection on Steve more than I. These two are brought together pretty much entirely by a connection to Steve, and and as a result, they are not like completely hostile to each other. There is some level of like
camaraderie.
Yeah, like almost like a sibling rivalry aspect to it. And we're going to have the rest of the show to basically have them sort of be brought together and like an established a relationship between the two of them, not a relationship between Steve in the middle of them. They have to figure out how to work together as opposed to working with Steve at the same time.
Again, I hear what you're saying, and again, all that kind of leads, but I just don't feel. I feel like these antagonistic forces. The whole point of, again, a buddy cop thing is usually they are forced to work together, and they don't want to work together, right? In this, they're not being forced to work together. You know, Bucky is just deciding to go along, and then they made in that therapy thing. They just made this agreement. All right, well, we'll just work this whole thing out again. If Bucky just wants to like help with the Flag Smashers thing, then that in and of itself is a motivation. Like he can just be like, oh, there's some kind of terrorist thing. Let me go help with it. But really, Bucky has no reason to work with Sam at all. Like he had no reason to join and go with them. Other than, again, the simple motivation, I'm just going to go help because terrorism's bad. You know, it's not like what and because of that, some of the stuff feels like, you know, like it's basically like either Bucky wants to be working with him or he doesn't. So them acting like they don't want to work together doesn't work for me when they could just not be.
So I just think you're not appreciating. Well,
and just to another point. So another point here is that their interactions, like the, you know, funny little like quips and stuff like that, just also feel in some ways a little bit forced. Like it, you know, doesn't always feel very like it just, again, it doesn't come off as genuine as I would hope. It doesn't come off as like smooth and like this, you know, ha ha ha, like they're, you know, these just don't, like, it just, like the Falcon's like little quips and stuff about him seem very like written, and they, you know, they don't seem like some interaction that something he just came up with, like because it was funny in the moment. It seems like it was a funny thing that the writers put in there and to clearly illustrate the, you know, humorous relationship between them. And again, maybe that's just like the poor writing, and maybe I'm just totally wrong. Maybe that's just how I felt about it. But I definitely, again, from a guy who wanted to like this and definitely wanted this to be, you know, have that interaction, it just didn't land as well for me. And I don't know. So that's just kind of how I feel about it.
All right. So previous point, so second point, I said it in the first episode. I don't think the show has the best writing. I don't think this episode made the writing any better, quite frankly. But I think I just am getting more I think I'm getting past the fact that the show doesn't have great writing, and then I'm just trying to enjoy it. Maybe that's why, like, you're right. Some of those quips felt a little forced, and like the beginning stuff with John Walker in the locker room, like it did a good job at introducing me to this character, but it was all very like exposition dump. I'm not saying that the show has good writing. I'm saying that it's entertaining me. And I was about to say this about Falcon Winter Soldier, and I'm okay. I was going to say people are more nuanced than I don't want to work with you, and that's all that they mean. Falcon and Sam and Bucky probably actually do want to work with each other. Like they appreciate having this connection to Steve around, but they are too stubborn or machismo to admit that. So they'd rather just argue and bicker about it while still hanging out and still doing stuff together. I think saying that is like, I do, you're not seeing the chemistry. I think I do see the chemistry. I think Sebastian Stan and Anthony Mackie are really good actors, and like there's a lot of things putting the two against each other, but the two want to like each other. I get this sense, like in the back of like in their hearts, like there's the Steve aspect brings them together, and like they have enough respect for Steve that they respect this other person because Steve respected them, and that's sort of the thing that's bringing them together. But they're also like they're not like they don't really jive together as people, so there's like this sort of like friction between them. And I'm just saying that this is the first episode we get together with them. And if there's going to be, what, 7 more episodes of them like getting along and trying to work it out together, I think we have time to see their chemistry grow.
Yeah, maybe it is just kind of a flaw in the writing. Again, maybe because of those, there are some of those moments that feel so like clearly trying to. Again, I really look at the one where they're walking on the road and Falcon starts being like, "What's going through that cyborg head of yours?" Which like it's kind of a funny moment, but it's not. It just feels so like fake and like weak. Like they just are like, "Oh, let's take this moment to illustrate their little thingy here." And again, maybe that's just the writing.
Yeah,
and maybe how it comes off to me, or I'm just like, really like.
No, yeah, I think it's the writing,
and so maybe that's really it right there. Is that because like again that therapy session? That's where like I think their acting and that writing was essentially fine. Like their acting came through there, and that it did illustrate more of this kind of like funny-ish like them doing some silly stuff there, and I think that was a good moment.
I actually don't think that was well written either. I think that was more the acting in the situation.
Exactly, and I would even say the acting there saved it. Like I guess like that interaction was good because whatever it was, that interaction was good, but other ones just didn't feel very. They felt kind of.
I felt that
like silly to me, like not just not like, again, I understand it's supposed to be kind of funny. Like it's definitely coming, like we're getting the Marvel amusement here, but it's just not, maybe it's just not well written. And because of that, I don't know, it just didn't come across to me. And I was a little disappointed by that. I mean, I think that's pretty much as I, like that's really just how I felt about that. Maybe a little disappointed, but I want to actually say this, before we, conclude the episode here, is that I still like this show and I still liked that episode. I just felt like there's just something about it that, wasn't quite as much as I wanted. And that might be my expectations being a little high and not quite meeting. Like this was supposed to be like, for me, I was like, yeah, cool, they're finally meeting. And maybe I just didn't get what I was hoping for, but still like it and still really enjoying the series and want to see where it goes. So,
I mean, yeah, I can't feel much more opposite than you. I thought that this was significantly better than the first episode. And some of the flaws from the first episode, I think, are still there, but like at least they're doing stuff and it's interesting and it's not an hour of trying to get alone. And I don't know. I like this episode better.
Yeah, and that's fine. So,
and I'm more interested to see what we get going forward.
Excellent. As am I. So, well, I think that about wraps it up for this episode. So, I mean, unless you have anything else, Ryan.
Nope.
All right. Well, until next time, folks, this has been Robert.
And Ryan.
Have a good one.
Yeet.